Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching 13th part of What If Naruto Was the Black Dragon of Apocalypse. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Acnologia roared as he flew toward Ghidorah with the golden hydra flying down to him. The black and gold dragons crashed into each other, sending a gust of wind in all directions. The two huge reptiles raised their heads and looked at each other for a moment. Then, all of a sudden, they spread their wings and flew up into the night sky. The two kept flying up into the sky until they were right above the clouds. The bright red moon was shining above them as they glared at each other. After a split second, the two run at each other. Ghidorah's two side heads shot forward to bite Naruto when they were about arm's length apart, but the Dragon King quickly thrust his arms forward and caught the two heads at the beginning of their long necks. The middle head throws its head back and lets out a bolt of lightning, but Acnologia quickly tilts his head to avoid it. As the Aethernano came together into a familiar sphere, the black dragon starts putting mana into his right foot. Naruto pulls Ghidorah close quickly and yells, "Rasengan." The whirling sphere hits Ghidorah in the stomach. Ghidorah grunts as the sphere explodes and covers his whole body. This sends him flying backward. But Naruto knew this fight wasn't going to be easy. He was right, as lightning bolts shot out of the smoke cloud after the explosion. Naruto dodged several of them quickly. When the dust settled, Ghidorah was standing there unharmed. As it looked at Naruto, the middle head on its back rose up. "It's crazy to think that someone who used to be human could be a threat to someone like me. How amusing." The middle head of Ghidorah laughed and grumbled at the same time. Naruto looked at his opponent with a raised eyebrow. "Oh? So, Ghidorah, you finally decided to open your mouth and speak?" he teased. The three heads let out a snort. "Acnologia, I know you are my enemy. And I'll beat you up." Naruto gave a growl. "At least we can all agree on something." The two dragons charged at each other again. Naruto got to Ghidorah first because he was a little bit smaller. He moves his arm back and hits the middle head's jaw with a right hook. The next thing Naruto says is, "Akuryukiaku, Devil Dragon Kick." Ghidorah quickly moved out of the way of the leg that was covered in magic and slammed his body into Naruto's stomach. The blonde king fell a little, but he caught Ghidorah by the middle of his neck. The electrical discharge came from the Golden Hydra, but Naruto didn't let the pain stop him from using his incredible strength to flip Ghidorah over his head and send him flying in the opposite direction. Naruto puts mana in his arms, legs, and tail. He sends out another Devil Dragon Kick, then an energy slash from his tail, and then two big Rasengans that he throws at Ghidorah. Ghidorah quickly got back on its feet, and Naruto started firing his string of attacks at the same time. The golden-scaled kaiju charged both of its spiked tails with lightning and quickly blocked the kick and slash. It then attacked the two Rasengans with two lightning bolts from its side heads as the attacks went off. Naruto raises his arm and gathers his magical energy into a large spinning disc. "Kinzen!" Naruto yells as he throws the Aethernano disc. Ghidorah laughed at the attack because he thought Acnologia could do better. Ghidorah didn't notice Acnologia's evil grin as he was getting ready to shoot the disc away. Just as Ghidorah shot his lightning bolts, Naruto made a fist with his hand. As soon as he did that, the Kinzen split into many smaller Kinzens. Ghidorah was surprised when the Kinzens started to surround him and cut him in several places. Naruto lets out a grunt. He quickly puts his mana into the tips of his fingers, toes, and stinger. Soon, there were a few Rasengan on each tip. Naruto quickly raises his claws and tail before throwing the multiple Rasengans, which grew to about 1/4 the size of Naruto's dragon body as they began to circle Ghidorah. Acnologia quickly fills 6 different parts of his body with magical power. The black dragon roars as he shoots several lasers of destruction from his clawed hands, feet, tail, mouth, and eyes. Ghidorah glared at the beams and Rasengans that were coming at him and about to hit him. He would show this king that he wouldn't give up so easily. The eyes of the kaiju were golden and glowed with electricity. He sends out a huge pulse of electricity that destroys the Kinzens and Rasengans. As the destruction lasers hit the expanding pulse, it kept getting bigger and bigger, like a big wall, with Ghidorah in the middle. Naruto and Ghidorah both kept adding more magical power to their attacks, but the fight stayed at a standstill. As their attacks got stronger, blue and yellow lightning bolts shot out in all directions because the two sides were making too much power. The fight finally ended when the two attacks' energies collided too much and caused a bright explosion in the middle. The whole sky was lit up by a bright white flash that almost looked like daylight for a minute or so before it died down. Even though the night sky had gone back to normal, Naruto and Ghidorah were still standing and staring at each other. Naruto was shaking. Not afraid, but excitement. He hadn't felt a battle like this in a long time. One who moved blood quickly through his veins. His heart was beating so fast that it hurt his eardrums. He hasn't felt this kind of fight in a very long time. But now he was finally going up against someone who could make him fight at his best. Naruto let out a loud roar as the markings on his body began to light up again. It's fun to fight a good opponent. Oh, how much he missed this. Guild Arts and Fairy Tail gave him small amounts, but this is what he was waiting for. Ghidorah's face showed that he felt the same way. The golden creature fought back by screeching as golden lightning danced around its body, or more specifically, its three necks. As they looked at each other, their magical energy started to build up in their mouths, which started to glow with a Thernano. Finally, they both roared their most famous moves. Hakai no Hoko. Gravity beams. For Naruto, he sent out a huge beam of sky blue Etherion, and Ghidorah sent out 3 huge beams of pale yellow electricity. As the two attacks moved slowly toward each other, time seemed to slow down. As the attacks finally hit each other, there was a moment of silence, and then a bright flash surrounded the two dragons. Kaboom! The silence was broken by a very loud explosion caused by the two attacks hitting each other. The bright white explosion spreads out across the area and lights up the sky for a few seconds, stopping some mages and dragons in their tracks so they can look up at the bright white flash. Soon, the light started to go away, and Naruto could start to see again. But as soon as he could see again, Ghidorah was flying right toward him. Naruto couldn't move before the golden kaiju slammed into him, sending him and the kaiju hurtling toward the ground. Naruto tries to get free, but he can't. When he looks down, he sees that they are about to crash into a red dragon that is being fought by mages. The two crashed into each other and landed on top of the dragon, which was completely crushed by their combined weight. A cloud of smoke and dust is now covering the area. As the dust settled, Acnologia and Ghidorah were fighting. The two side heads of Acnologia were wrapped around Ghidorah's arms, and the middle head was growling back and forth with Acnologia. Acnologia? Naruto's ears twitched because he knew who was watching his fight from just a few feet away. He saw that Ghidorah wasn't paying them any mind, which was good for him. He didn't have to worry about fighting Ghidorah and keeping everyone else safe. Ghidorah had just moved a few feet away when Acnologia quickly pushed him back. They were at an impasse as they stared at each other. As the two of them charged forward, Naruto let out a low, buzzing growl. When the left head tried to bite Naruto's neck, he quickly turned his head to the side. The black dragon quickly strikes back by slamming one of his claws into the cheek of the left Ghidorah head. The left head screamed in pain when it felt blood coming out of the wound. The middle head of the kaiju dragon fired a direct lightning bolt at Acnologia, but the black dragon managed to dodge it again and hit the right head with a left cross as it tried to bite down on his right forearm. Naruto then hit the middle head with a right cross, but the middle head laughed as he spun around Naruto's fist and bit down on his arm. Naruto yells out in pain as he tries to pull off the middle head, but the other two heads wrap around his other arm and chest and bite down on soft spots of skin. Naruto clenched his teeth together in pain as he kept struggling to get the heads off of him. He opened his eyes wide as he felt his strength leaving him. He wants to see blue energy flow down each of Ghidorah's 3 necks. This jerk was taking his magic power. But before Naruto could do anything, lightning danced around the heads of the Ghidorah. Then Naruto's whole body started to get shocked. Naruto roared in pain as he lost his concentration while trying to get out of his trap. Using this distraction, the lead Ghidorah wrapped himself around Acnologia's throat and started to squeeze along with the other two. Naruto could feel the air leaving his lungs, and he started to feel numb all over. As his vision got worse, spit, bile, and foam started to come out of his mouth. Tou-san. Naruto's eyes flew open when he heard his daughter yell for him. He shut his eyes tight. He wouldn't be so easy to beat. He turned his head to see Ghidorah look at the people watching them. Oh hell no. Ghidorah will never go near his family. In the meantime, Ghidorah had turned his attention to the people watching them and was planning to shoot a gravity beam at them. The Golden Hydra laughed as he watched the humans try to fight back. Ghidorah, on the other hand, had to stop having fun when his opponent started to burn him so badly that he started to scream in pain. The three heads came out of their coils and jumped back to glare at Acnologia, whose body looked like it was made of blue and white flames. Naruto glared at the golden kaiju, making his eyes glow red. "You're not allowed to touch them. We'll have to see." Ghidorah laughed to himself as he spread his wings and took off again. Naruto put out the fire as he spread out his black wings and gave a small look back at the people watching him. "What in the hell are you doing? Go out and help other people. Tell them exactly what I'm going to say. Keep fighting and stay out of my fight." Everyone yelled, "Hi." Naruto nodded. "Good." Then Naruto jumps back into the air and flies back to his opponent. As Naruto got closer to Ghidorah, he tried to hurt its wings with another breath attack, but the kaiju dodged it. Ghidorah put his three heads back and fired his gravity beams, which quickly wrapped around the wings, arms, and neck of Acnologia. When Ghidorah moved his heads, Naruto went flying through the air and crashed into the empty GMG stadium. Naruto crashed through the walls and landed hard on the sandy ground, buried by the crumbling stadium walls. As Ghidorah rose higher into the air, he looked down at the broken pieces. He knew that wouldn't be enough to beat Acnologia. Suddenly, a few of the other wild dragons that weren't fighting the mages flew toward Naruto. Ghidorah had to laugh at what they did. Did these fools really think they could beat Acnologia? Utter fools. The middle head said something. Hee 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 hee. All of them are going to die. The left head laughed with delight. In anger, the middle head bit the left head. "Shut up," said the middle. "Please don't fight. We have to stay together." The right head said something. The left side nodded and the middle side rolled its eyes. The two heads said at the same time, "Hi, whatever." While this was going on, a group of dragons that eat people had gathered around the ruins of the GMG stadium and were getting ready to use their signature attacks. "Hit him hard with everything you have. This is our big chance. If we can kill him, we can kill Ghidorah together. And now that they're both dead, a new Dragon King can arise." The group suddenly saw a bright blue light start to flash from under the rubble. Before the dragons could think any more, a number of destruction beams shot out of the rubble and pierced all of them in many important places. As Naruto got up from the rubble and looked at the dragons he had killed, he looked annoyed. The rubble began to move away. "You dirty, smelly lizards have the gall to try to catch me off guard? Do you think I'm some kind of greenhorn dragon that would be stopped by rubble? Mongrels, don't take your place below your king." Naruto told the beams to cut through all of the impaled dragons as their bloody pieces fell to the ground. When the blonde Dragon King turned around, Ghidorah was looking down at him and laughing. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he spread his wings and flew up, following the kaiju he was fighting until they stopped in the middle of a big cumulonimbus cloud. The middle head said, "I'm glad to see you up again, Acnologia." The left head teased, "It would be a shame if our battle ended so soon. It's been a long time since we faced someone so strong. Please continue to entertain us, Acnologia." The right mind spoke up. Acnologia growled as he smiled with his teeth at Ghidorah. "Ghidorah, I wouldn't worry so much. You might have liked the first round, but how will you do in the second?" "Yes, that's right," all three heads said at the same time. Suddenly, a few more dragons came out of nowhere and surrounded the first two. Ghidorah and Acnologia both snarled at the person who stopped their fight. "Acnologia, I hope you have a way to deal with this problem. I don't think it would help to fly higher." Naruto kept giving the dragons and Ghidorah the evil eye. All of a sudden, Ghidorah and the other dragons heard Acnologia laugh in a dark, evil way. "Oh, don't worry," Naruto said with a dark smirk. "I know just the right spell to get rid of them and keep you entertained. If you can stay alive." Ghidorah began to laugh in amusement. The three heads all asked at the same time, "And what kind of spell is that?" Naruto's magical aura started to cover his whole body as he started to break through the clouds and show the starry sky above. "Simple. I'll let you and these scumbags see one of my secret spells." This made Ghidorah's eyes get smaller. Dragons were creatures with a lot of strength. They gave off magical energy from their bodies. One spell or attack could easily crush mountains. Secret spells were around long before Naruto's puny human mind even thought of dragonslayers. They were the dragon's strongest attacks, and they only used them when they had to. Most of the time, they were used to completely destroy an enemy. If they had to, one spell could wipe out a whole army. But Naruto's case was interesting. He was a person who became a pretty strong mage. For a person, at least. But then the brat made magic to kill dragons and got stronger. As he killed more people, he got stronger and stronger until he reached the top of a normal dragon's power level. He was able to get the Dragon King's power. Something that has never happened before. It was just impossible for a person to become as strong as a Dragon King. But Naruto showed that those claims were not true. Most dragons have at least 5 secret spells, and some have as many as 7. But since Naruto isn't like other dragons, he might have more than 7 secret spells. Ghidorah had to stop thinking when Naruto's magical pressure reached its highest point. Naruto gave his enemies a psychotic grin as he started to cackle and his tribal markings started to glow bright blue. He hadn't had to use the secret spells in so long. He only used the secret spells of his other skills most of the time. He would only use his secret spells on someone who was very strong or on someone he wanted to kill completely. When he showed Wendy a few of them, that was the last time he really used them. But he only showed her the ones that weren't too bad, which wasn't saying much. All of his hidden spells were so powerful that just one could easily destroy the capital of Fury. Now he was about to use the spell that had made him famous all over Earthland. That spell let him kill every living thing in a whole country in one night. He lifted his head, looked at the blood-red moon with white eyes that were glowing, and yelled, "Filthy mongrels! Vanish into extinction! Eternal flare!" Suddenly, a few stars in the sky began to shine, and then a number of meteors began to fall from the sky and head straight for Ghidorah and the other dragons. Ghidorah was able to quickly protect himself by putting up an electric pulse barrier. As the bright meteors hit the barrier, Ghidorah shook inside it. "The shield is still up, but I can still feel the meteors hitting me. This spell is very good. Still, I shouldn't have expected anything different from him." The dragons in the sky and in the capital were not as lucky. They all got stuck easily and were either hurt or killed right away. But the dragons were not the only thing that got hurt. The spell destroyed a lot of the capital city and started fires all over the city, sending smoke into the air. The area around the capital was also turned into a hellish wasteland of black ash and bright orange flames. Ghidorah looked down at all the damage that Acnologia's spell had done. He did notice, though, that his attack only hurt the dragons that were attacking the humans. None of the humans were hurt. Ghidorah turned around and looked at his rival. "I have to say, Acnologia, that was impressive. That spell did a lot of damage. I don't think that was the full power of the spell, though. Still, what you did showed a lot of power. You were able to kill all of the dragons that were around us and a few of the ones below us. Still, no one was hurt." Acnologia blew her nose. "Did you think I couldn't use my spell or that I didn't know what I wanted to hit? Please. All of my spells are completely under my control, and they only hurt the people I want them to. But I take care with the spells that do more damage." The right head realized, the enchantment. It kept them all safe, the left head laughed. Acnologia nodded. The black dragon then glared at Ghidorah and said, "Indeed. But I think we should get back to our business, you golden abomination." The heads of Ghidorah smiled. Yes indeed. Ghidorah's body started to glow gold, and lightning started shooting out of it and dancing around the clouds. As more lightning kept coming out of the golden hydra's body and dancing around the now huge hurricane that was eating the two, the clouds began to gather and swirl around them. Acnologia smiled with her teeth. "Oh? So, Ghidorah, you want to make a storm, huh? Well, this game can be played by two." Suddenly, a pale blue-white aura wraps around Naruto's body as the clouds grow and get closer to them. Blue, white and yellow lightning starts to dance around them. Naruto keeps laughing in a mean way as his aura and the fake magical storm get stronger. Kurama told him a story that inspired this spell. This is the story of the Jubi, the first Biju and the first creature of the elemental nations. The creature had the power to destroy continents and make terrible storms at will. This is where the idea for this attack came from. To remember that he was the last descendant of Kaguya Otsutsuki and to show this world both his scary power and the power of the old world he came from. Ghidorah's eyes got smaller when he felt how much power Acnologia was giving off. Ghidorah fought back by making the storm he started even stronger, but Naruto fought back by letting out even more power. As the storm got stronger, the two were at a power standstill. As their lightning clashed against each other and their auras got stronger, they kept letting out more power. Naruto grins as he lets out his most powerful move and roars. Try the power that was once used by Ghidorah, a primordial beast. Tenpenchii, natural disaster strikes heaven and earth. A bright blue flash came out of Naruto at the same time that a huge yellow flash came out of Ghidorah. When the two flashes met, they merged into a bright white flash. At the same time, several F1 to F2 tornadoes formed and tore through the capital and most of the land around it, while huge bolts of lightning flew down from the sky. At last, one last blast shot through the sky and hit the middle of the capital. When the light went away, Naruto was still in dragon form because a white aura still surrounded his body. He looked to see if Ghidorah had been hurt by the attack. He saw that Ghidorah had been scratched and hurt all over, but those wounds were slowly getting better. Naruto's small injuries were also getting better slowly. Naruto took a quick look and saw that the crater that had been made by their two attacks was being filled with water and that some of the tornadoes were starting to die out. He also noticed that the storm clouds were gone, but there were still a lot of clouds that made it hard to see the two of them in most of the night sky. Naruto goes back to looking at Ghidorah. The two people glare at each other before running again toward the other. When they were only a few feet apart, Acnologia threw his head back and attacked Ghidorah's middle head with a roar. Ghidorah's head was able to move out of the way of the explosion. He quickly hit back with a tail strike, but Naruto quickly leaned back to avoid the attack. The black dragon stood up straight and clapped his hands together. As soon as the two arms touched, a sonic boom came from Ghidorah's hands and spread through his body. The golden hydra cried out in pain as his three heads shook. When the three looked back at their opponent, they could see that something was wrong. There were many Acnologia, and all of them were spinning. Ghidorah tried to shake off his dizziness, but it was harder than it sounded. Naruto used this chance to grab Ghidorah's left head with one arm while he charged his mana into his other hand and made another Rasengan with the other. Acnologia threw the ball of Aethernano at the base of the left Ghidorah's neck with a loud roar. The three heads screamed in pain as the sphere ground and tore through the scales, muscles, nerves, and bones around the neck and collar of the left head until it was finally torn apart. Still confused, the two heads tried to attack, but Naruto hits them in the head with the severed head of Ghidorah. While the two heads were busy, Naruto threw away the head that had been cut off and turned his forearms into a pair of dark silver drills. Iron Dragon's drills, Tetsuryu no Doriru. Naruto used both of his drill arms to hit Ghidorah in the sides of his stomach. Again, the golden hydra screamed in pain as the iron drills went through its scales and started to go through its skin. But Ghidorah was never a person or thing that should have been taken lightly. When the two heads finally got their bearings and stopped feeling dizzy, they shook their heads. Both heads were looking down at Naruto. Ghidorah raised his two spiked tails and hit Naruto's head with them. The attack hit the black dragon hard, and it was now his turn to be confused. Ghidorah jumped up on his two legs and hit Acnologia in the chest with two powerful frontal kicks. Naruto coughed as his drill arms came out of Ghidorah's sides and pushed him back a little. The middle head reared back and shot out a big gravity beam that hit Acnologia in the middle of the chest. The other head let loose a stream of plasma that burned Naruto's face, wing, and forearm on the left side. Naruto clenched his teeth in pain as he fell diagonally down. He could feel the gravity beam go through his scales and burn his muscles. It was the plasma flames that caused the most trouble. Naruto could feel the flesh on the left side of his body melting away as it was burned away. Naruto quickly spread out his right wing and used it to push himself up and away from the two beam attacks. He did this by manipulating the wind. Naruto growled as smoke came out of his wounds as they burned. The blonde king could feel and hear the bubbling of his skin, which was on fire. His chest scales were completely blown off, exposing soft muscle and tissue that had been burned away, leaving behind blackened muscle and tendons. But Naruto's left side was the part that got hurt the most. That plasma was so hot that it burned off his right wing, arm, and leg. The three limbs had been completely cut off, and black and red burned muscle covered the wounds to keep them from getting worse. On the left side of his face, the skin had completely melted away, leaving only bone and small bits of burned muscle. Due to the extreme heat, his eyeball had exploded, leaving a hole in his head from which white liquid dripped like tears. Even worse, the only reason he wasn't falling was because he was using his wind magic to stay up. Ghidorah attacked Naruto out of the blue, stopping him from thinking. Before the black dragon could strike back, he felt something because he was connected to the spell he cast. He looked into the strange thing and found that it came from Altair. His one eye gets bigger, and then, when he gets mad, it gets smaller. He was too busy to deal with this nonsense. Don't even consider it. What? Don't even think about putting that spell into effect. Naruto? How the heck are you talking to me right now? Ghidorah was right above Naruto before he could answer, and he was about to strike with his tails if Naruto hadn't just managed to catch the attack with his right arm. Naruto bit his teeth together in pain and anger. It's hard for me to talk to you because I'm trying to fight a kaiju. Ghidorah's eyebrows went up in surprise. What could Acnologia do while he was sick? Naruto gave his enemy a hard look with his half-burned face. He lifted his burned arm and let out a small growl. The burned limb suddenly spewed out a huge amount of blood. Ghidorah was shocked when he found out what Naruto had in mind. Then, to the kaiju's surprise, the blood changed into a thorn whip with spikes. Blood Dragon's thorn whip, Ketsuekiryu no Togemuchi. Ghidorah was pushed back by a strong cut from Naruto. Then, he changed the blood whip into a huge fist. He moved the huge part back, just like Ghidorah moved his middle head back. Blood Dragon's breakdown fist, or Ketsuekiryu no Hoken. Laser beam. When the two attacks hit each other, they made a cloud of blood-red mist that surrounded the two dragons. So, I will keep this short. The spell you want to cast could turn back time, but it would cost too much. You might go back in time by a minute. That's it, and you'd lose the rest of your life if you did it. So I'm telling you to. Don't cast that spell, did you get that? Altair said, good, which made Naruto sigh, and then she cut the connection. He felt like a parent giving a child a lecture. He thought that he might have to sign more than a few papers after tonight. Naruto shook his head and went back to fighting as the blood-red mist cleared away. Ghidorah didn't seem to be hurt in any way. Before Ghidorah began to laugh, the two just stared at each other. Before he saw something, Naruto was going to ask him what was so funny. The left head's collar was bubbling, and a mass of flesh and liquid was coming out of it. It grew until it was the same length as the other two heads. Muscle and tissue grew, and pink skin grew over the muscle. Last, golden scales started to grow on the new head as it finished regenerating. Before focusing on Acnologia, the left head shook his head to get his bearings. The left head started to laugh out loud. Howdy again, Acnologia. Cheered the left head. I see that you're trying out a new style. It suits you. Of course you can grow new heads, Naruto said with a growl. What do you want us to do? Leave it without a head? The head on the left moved. That would be a bad thing. Also, having only two heads doesn't make sense. The middle head bit the left head's right horn. You're talking too much, grumbled the middle head. Oh, please. Part of the fun is that. The head on the left whined. All I want for fun is for this black lizard to beg for mercy. The middle head replied, looking at Acnologia as he did so. I will die before that ever happens. Naruto gave a snarl of irritation. Well, that can be worked out, said the right head. Then it turned to the two heads who were fighting. Now, if you guys are done fighting. Both the middle and left heads said at the same time, no, yes. The sight made Naruto shake his head. He had forgotten that each head of Ghidorah had its own personality and that the three heads always fought with each other. He never could understand how those three heads could work together. Even though the situation was bad, it was still funny to see. Naruto growled as his body turned green and black and blue miasma erupted from his hurt arms, legs, and wings, which then grew back into new ones. His face was soon covered in steam, and muscle began to grow back over the bones. As the skin grew over the muscle and new black scales grew on the face, a new eyeball grew. Naruto shook his head as he checked out his new, normal-looking limbs. When he turned around, he saw Ghidorah watching him with a smile on his face. Well, here we are again, groaned the right head. The left head joked, it feels like we spent all of our time and energy trying to rip each other's limbs off. If you want to beat Acnologia, you'll have to try harder, said the right head. Don't think we'll just stand here and do nothing, the middle head laughed. It's pretty cocky of you to just stand there and do nothing. If I can't beat you by ripping off your limbs, I'll have to beat you until you can't get up. Naruto growled back at him. All three of them laughed. Oh, please. Acnologia, don't act like you don't like this fight, the right head told him. This is the most fun we have had in hundreds of years. It would be a terrible waste to kill you. The head on the left cheered. As Ghidorah's body started to glow golden, the middle head said, "Yes, but it's necessary." "You're right, I'm having fun. But I have a schedule, so let's hurry up." Naruto's body began to glow bright blue as well. Then, the two blurred into blue and yellow streaks. The two dragons crashed into each other several times, causing loud sonic booms and blue and yellow lightning to shoot out of each crash. This went on for a few minutes, until the two got a few feet apart and then ran toward each other to fight again. This time, the two stayed in the same place as they fought over who was stronger. Then, a bright flash came and covered them. When the flash went away, there were two bright flashes spiraling together. The two dragons were still fighting as they fell to the ground. The two of them drilled into the ground, which made the whole capital shake and made everyone fall over from the force of the land below. The behemoths keep digging underground until they reach a clearing they accidentally found. Naruto shakes his head as he starts to remember where he is. He was in the graveyard for dragons. So I end up back where I first took the name Acnologia to heart. I don't know if it's ironic or maybe just fate that I'm back here again. Naruto thought about things as he looked around him. It had been 400 years since he had been here. He was still fighting in the Dragon Civil War the last time he came. He was trying to save one girl, but he couldn't. Out of anger, he killed the people who killed her. Even now, he can still remember what his enemy said to him as he was dying. That jerk had the nerve to compare him to the Dark One, who is an awful person. The one that all dragons fear. Now, Naruto had gone by many names before Acnologia, but this was a special case. He only said yes because he wanted his enemies to be scared whenever they heard his name. Even if it meant getting close to him. But this made his remaining allies, with the exception of a few, afraid of him. Both friends and foes thought he was dangerous. As a scary thing. The same as that thing. Someone who will ruin everything and everyone in their path. A gravity beam shot right at Naruto's face, stopping him in the middle of his thoughts. He looks up to glare at a proud-looking Ghidorah who was just a few feet away. "Did your trip down memory lane make you happy?" Ghidorah made fun of Naruto as he growled. When the two side heads looked around, they saw that there were many dragon bones and remains all around them. "Were you the one who put these dragons to death? Then it would be ironic and fitting for you to die here, wouldn't it?" Naruto gave a growl. "You are the only person who will die here." Then, he reached out with clawed arms that were half closed. All of a sudden, the bones of the dead dragon started to shake violently, and the whole cavern began to move. Ghidorah tensed up its body so it would be ready for anything. "Do you plan to use magic to kill bone dragons on me?" In response, Naruto gave a smirk. "That kind of thing." All of a sudden, the bones rose into the air and came together to form a large dragon structure covered in a gray and yellow aura. Ghidorah let out a snort. "Acnologia, is this the best you can do? This isn't very good. I honestly thought you'd do more." Naruto laughed at the giant monster with 3 heads. "Talk trash about it after you beat it, kaiju." Ghidorah's expression didn't change as the bone thing lunged forward. The 3-headed golden dragon lifted its heads and shot 3 gravity beams at the building. But, to its surprise, the bone creature took in all of the bolts as they came together in the construct's mouth and fired them back. As the gravity beams hit him, Ghidorah quickly wrapped his wings around himself. When the kaiju felt the force of his attack, it clenched its teeth. Something that really got on the Golden Hydra's nerves. Ghidorah yelled in anger as it threw the bolts away. The machine raised its arm and pushed forward, but the middle Ghidorah head fired a gravity beam that stopped the machine from going any further. Then, the 2 side heads fire a huge stream of hot plasma that melts the build. When Ghidorah turned back to look at Acnologia, he was gone. Naruto suddenly shows up in front of Ghidorah with 2 bone spikes sticking out of his wrists. The kaiju didn't have much time to react as Naruto stabbed him through the lower jaws of his 2 side heads and slammed them back into the ground. He then stuck the 2 tails with a needle to hold them in place. Naruto grabbed the middle head as he charged a roar attack to send down Ghidorah's throat. Ghidorah's body, on the other hand, started to glow golden yellow, and the eyes of his 3 heads started to glow bright yellow. The side heads broke off and stood up on their own as the other 3 sent out gravity beams and Naruto let out a destruction roar. When the attacks hit close together, they cause a huge power explosion that shakes the capital and sends violent power geysers up from the ground below. As Naruto and Ghidorah fly up into the air, the ground splits open with one last violent shake. A huge power geyser shoots up from the ground. When they got to a good height in the sky, they stopped. We're stuck again, said the right head. Are you ready for round 3? Asked the left head. The middle head said, you will fall, and I will take your throne. Naruto gave a snort. You won't live through this day to take the throne, Ghidorah, he said with a smirk as golden lightning danced around his body. The kaiju focused his eyes as several balls of golden lightning started to form around him. With a shake of his head, he sends the spheres toward Naruto. The black dragon quickly responds by calling forth 4 Kinzans, one for each of its hands and feet. He then spreads his wings and calls up a number of ethereal blades, which he also fires. Naruto was surprised, though, when the discs and blades cut into the orbs and made them break up into smaller orbs that moved even faster. You stupid copycat. But I'll play your game, Ghidorah, Naruto growled as he made a water barrier to stop the electric spheres and soak them up. Thankfully, electricity can flow through water. Naruto saw that Ghidorah's pulse blast was able to stop his attacks. The blonde king lifts his arm as the electric water around him swirls into a big whirlpool. Then, he calls up swirls of fire, wind, ice, and pure magical energy into the spinning vortex. The vortex grew big enough to cover Naruto's dragon form, and with a flick of Naruto's wrist, it took the shape of a big elemental dragon. Sextuple unison raid, spiraling elemental dragon drill bullet. Roared the elemental construct as it flew toward Ghidorah. The elemental drill bullet didn't scare the golden hydra one bit. It roared and sent out another big electrical pulse to stop it. The structure tried hard to get past the pulse, but the electrical shockwave kept pushing the dragon back. The two attacks fought for a few more minutes before a bright dome started to form between them and exploded, covering both of them. Naruto put his hands over his eyes to shield them from the bright light of the explosion. He could see Ghidorah coming straight at him through the spaces between his fingers. He was not going to let the kaiju catch him again. Ghidorah was only an arm's length away from Naruto, but as he dove down to him, Naruto turned into black and red shadows. What? Said the heads. Where did he go? Demanded the middle head. The shadows behind them turned back into the black dragon. Using the distraction of his enemies, he throws back his head and roars. When Naruto said, Soruryu no Moru Yonohano, Soul Dragon Searing Flames, a wave of black and blue flames shot out of his mouth and wrapped around Ghidorah's back, setting fire to his two side heads. The golden hydra screeched in agony. The fire shouldn't be able to hurt him this much. So why was he in so much terrible pain? It feels like he's being torn apart from the inside out. Just as the kaiju turned his body, Naruto flew back and slammed into him. Ghidorah would have tried to shoot a gravity beam from the middle head if Naruto hadn't grabbed it by the throat with his clawed foot. Ghidorah was surprised to see Naruto smirk at him. Just to remind you, I was raised by both Thorin and Saphira. Her soul flames had two sides. The holy side cleansed and healed, but the other side was like hellfire, hurting both the body and the soul. Even Atlas Flame had to be careful when he faced my mother because her flames were one of the few things that could hurt him. The middle head grunted, you won't win with just this. In response, Naruto laughed. I know. Naruto smiled as he held out both arms with his palms open. In the left arm, a white-blue ball with a brilliant shine like the moon formed, and in the right hand, a red-yellow ball formed that looked like a small sun. Then, he squeezed the two orbs together until they were small enough to fit in the palm of his claws. Naruto put the two clumped orbs in his mouth, where they merged into a bright silver orb, which he then ate. Ghidorah's eyes get big because he knows what's going to happen next. Nishokuryu no Hoko, Eclipse Dragon's Roar. Ghidorah just manages to tilt his body away as a huge silver beam of mana shoots out of Naruto's mouth. Ghidorah screamed in pain as the beam wrapped around part of his body and flew through the air until it reached the mountain range north of the capital. When a bright flash of light filled the northern horizon, everything was still. Kaboom! Before a huge explosion blew up the whole area and destroyed almost every mountain in the northern horizon. A strong gust of wind blew through the whole capital, sending dust and other things flying everywhere. It also blew down several buildings and the dead dragon's bodies and limbs. Naruto looked to see if Ghidorah was still alive after the explosion stopped. He expected this because he knew the kaiju would not fall so easily. He had lost his left leg, his tail, and another head. His wing was torn up, but it still let him fly, and one of the eyes on his middle head was gone. Naruto gave a smug grin. Ghidorah growled, "Guess we're even now," and then snorted. The middle one bit down on the damaged pieces of the left head and tore it off. At the same time, a new head grew in its place, and new limbs grew as well. "Another deadlock," cheered the left head. "This is getting annoying. One of us needs to break the tie," the right head said in a frustrated tone. The left head said, "Maybe we can get Acnologia to use another secret spell on us and see if that helps." The middle head snapped at the other two, "Shut up, both of you." "What?" asked the left head. "You know it's true, and we know you're thinking the same thing. Our brains are connected, and we share a body." Naruto muttered, "For once, I agree with that head of yours," before pausing because he felt something in the capital. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A celestial titan and a phoenix's power. And if he was right, Eclair and Katya were at the center of these powers. Now, the connection with Katya made a lot more sense, since there was only one other stellar mage who could use the celestial titans. Oh, he's going to have a lot to do when this is over. When Naruto saw Eclair, he had to hold back a startle. Now he knew why she looked so familiar to him. She was a priestess of the Phoenix, which made things much harder for him and the girl. He sighed in his head and decided to deal with that old skeleton later. Naruto thought about his situation as he looked back at Ghidorah. Ghidorah has been hurt by most of his attacks. But the idiot gets over it quickly. But there must be a limit to how much damage he could heal from. All he has to do is find the right spell to use against Ghidorah. But he doesn't know what spell to use. He could use a secret spell that is much stronger. But there was something wrong. If he used too much power, he could hurt or kill Ghidorah, but the explosion that would happen would hurt the area around them. Whether or not he has magic, his attack will kill people. On the other hand, Ghidorah would barely be unharmed if he used less power to avoid hurting other people. All he would have done is waste mana. Naruto takes a quick look at his opponent and sees that the side where Ghidorah healed still has some burns on it. That last attack did some damage, even though he healed. If that was right in the middle, it's possible Ghidorah would be hurt worse. All I have to do is stop Ghidorah from getting away. He sees that he just took out two big pieces of the mountain range. As soon as he turns his attention back to the kaiju, he comes up with a plan. "Do you have a plan now, Acnologia?" Acnologia narrowed his eyes as he made several clones that quickly charged towards Ghidorah. The gold monster let out a snort. Really? Clones? He could only come up with that? Either he's putting things off or he doesn't know what he's doing. The kaiju thought it was the first one. As the clones attack Ghidorah, the original Acnologia flicks his right wrist, and two large dark portals appear above two of the remaining mountains. The portals then drop down, wrapping the mountains in their darkness. He looks back at Ghidorah after killing the last one of his copies. The middle head asked, "Is that all you have, Acnologia?" The right head told the left head, "Come on, you can do better than that." Naruto gave them a smirk and a shrug. "As you wish." Suddenly, above and below Ghidorah, two large, dark portals opened up, and mountains came out of them. Ghidorah opens his eyes wide before he laughs. Interesting idea, but this will fail. Ghidorah sent out a huge electrical pulse that easily destroyed the two mountains. Ghidorah notices that Acnologia has his claws together. He narrowed his eyes as he felt something in the middle of his palms. "I don't know what you're going to do with it, Acnologia, but I won't let you." Naruto laughed as he saw the kaiju coming. "It's so funny that I'm using this to hold you up, but desperate times call for desperate measures." Suddenly, silver chains came flying out of Naruto's back in several places and headed straight for Ghidorah. The kaiju opened its eyes wide as it tried to avoid the attack coming at it, but it was too close, and the chains wrapped around several parts of his body, making it impossible for him to get away. Ghidorah tried hard to get out of the chains, but they wouldn't let go, and he could feel himself getting weaker. Were the chains taking away his strength? What's going on? When he hears Acnologia laugh, he turns around. "I see you're wondering what these chains are. Let's just say they're something from my past that I never thought I'd use again, but life can throw you some interesting surprises." Which is true. Naruto would never use something that made him think of his parents. The Rasengan was a little different because he learned it before he found out about his family. But even though he didn't want to have anything to do with Minato and Kushina, he still learned and uses many of the skills they used a lot and were very good at. The most important thing he teaches them is how to seal things. And the Rasengan and chains are 2 more skills that he shares with them. And after he had thought about them for 7 years and told Wendy how he felt, he no longer hated or judged them. So he could now look at both of them with an open mind and not go crazy because of his past. Even if he doesn't know the name Uzumaki, Kushina's blood will always run through him. He has come to accept that as true, along with what that meant. If using this forgotten part of his past will help him protect what he loves most, then so be it. When Naruto opened his hands, a big black sphere fell out. It wasn't a Rasengan, but it wasn't something else either. Naruto smirked. "I'll have to thank Hinata for all the jutsus and memories she wrote down in her journal," he muttered as he stared at Ghidorah. Chibaku Tensai. The black sphere shoots toward Ghidorah and lands in the middle of his chest. The golden kaiju jerked as he felt his body being pulled into the sphere, but Ghidorah fought against the pull with all of his strength. Ghidorah yelled as he fought against the gravity of the sphere, "If you think a gravity ball can stop me, you're wrong, Acnologia." In response, Naruto gave a smirk. "I already know that." Ghidorah suddenly saw that pieces of rock and wood were starting to pile up on him in the sphere. As Naruto threw away the chains, the debris kept coming together until a huge planetoid stood in front of him. As Aethernano started to gather above his mouth, the Black Dragon King raised his head. But these were not just any particles. Instead, they were particles with positive and negative charges. As more particles came together, they formed a sphere that grew in size until it was half the size of the rock planetoid. Naruto stretches out his wings and tail toward the ball. Slowly, the huge ball of Aethernano started to get smaller and denser, sending out shockwaves from the weight of the power it held. When the ball was shrunk until it was about the size of a marble compared to Naruto, he opened his mouth and ate it. Both of Naruto's cheeks and stomach quickly grew bigger. Hey, this is the 4th move from his old world that he has used in this fight. If the Rasengan was added, it would be 5th. How amusing. He throws back his head and roars. "Let's see how you handle my second secret spell, Metsuryuougi, Bijuudama, Tailed Beast Bomb, Ball." The ball of concentrated mana shot out of Naruto's mouth like a fast-moving comet hurtling into space. It took less than a second to get there. There was a bright white flash when the bomb hit the sphere. Everything stopped making a sound. Nobody could hear anything. Not the wind blowing around Naruto, not the fighting going on below him, and not even his own breathing. Naruto was in a silent white void. But that silence was over as soon as it started. The bright flash got smaller and smaller before exploding with the force of 100 megatons of TNT. The explosion was so strong that Naruto had to build a wall to keep from being thrown back. Everyone else below wasn't as lucky, because the explosion was so strong that it sent enemies and a few allies flying. The blast was so bright that it turned the whole night sky into daytime. This blast was so strong and bright that it could be seen from hundreds of miles away in the countries around Fury. Anyone who could sense what was going on in the direction of the blast was completely overwhelmed by what they were feeling. What were they thinking? Naruto shook his head to get the spots out of his eyes as the blast went on for a few more minutes before it started to shrink and die down. That was a lot stronger than he had thought, but he had to do it to make sure Ghidorah would lose. When he saw the huge cloud of smoke caused by the explosion, he turned off his barrier. Naruto groaned. "Finally, this is over. Now I have to deal with that annoying ass gate." But suddenly, a lightning bolt shot out of the huge cloud of dust and hit Naruto in the left eye. He screamed, "Arg!" in pain. "Are you fucking kidding me?" he asked, turning his back on the huge cloud. Ghidorah came out of the huge cloud of dust. He was hurt, but he was still alive. The middle head's right eye and horn were broken off. Several parts of its body, including the necks of its side heads, were burned and beat up. "I'm not going to fall like this." Naruto yells, "Damn it, it's all to hell. Why won't you die?" As his body is covered in blue mana and he lunges at the fast-moving Ghidorah. When the dragon and the kaiju hit each other, blue and yellow electrical shockwaves spread out from the impact. The two break apart and turn into balls of lightning as they fly through the sky and keep hitting each other. Every time they fight, a flash of lightning lights up the sky and shows the mages and dragons below them how they look. The two had one last fight in which they both tried to get the upper hand, but they couldn't. Both of them growled as they put more mana into their attack, making more lightning ripple from the two. After one last push, they jumped back and fought back with Gravity Beam. Hakai no Hoko. The two signature moves hit each other again, causing a bright explosion as the two people looked at each other. Naruto's eyes got narrow. He had to put an end to this fight. He knew how to do it, but he wanted to save it for a more dire situation. However, this fight has gone on long enough. Naruto's dragon-like body started to take on a bright aura, and his tribal markings started to give off a faint glow. Ghidorah tensed up as he felt Acnologia's power spike and keep getting stronger. The Golden Hydra didn't know what the Black Dragon had in mind, but it wasn't going to take any chances. Ghidorah started to boost its mana to be ready for anything Naruto might throw at him. As their auras kept bumping into each other, the two kept getting stronger with their magic. As their auras hit each other, they sent out shockwaves that caused lightning to crackle. Boom. A loud explosion from below stopped the two dragons in their tracks. When the two people looked down, they saw that the eclipse gate was gone. Naruto gave a prideful smirk. In the end, they tore down the bloody gate. Time has come. Even though I wouldn't have done it that way, it worked, so I can't complain. Naruto looks around and sees lights shining all around the destroyed capital. When he turned, Ghidorah was also shining. He thought, they are going back to their original time. It's over at last. Bang. Boom. But Naruto was pulled out of his thoughts when he was hit hard from behind. The surprise attack made his back hurt. When he turned around, Ghidorah was holding onto his wings with his feet while his three heads looked down at him and his whole body was glowing gold. The two side heads bit into his neck on both sides. Acnologia jerked as he felt his mana leave his body quickly again as Ghidorah got stronger. The kaiju dragon then focused its extra power as the side heads let go and all three heads started sending power to their mouths. Did you think this would stop me, Acnologia? The middle head laughed. The right head told Acnologia, that was a bit naive of you. And it will cost you dearly. Cackled the left head with glee. Gravity beams. The three heads yelled in unison as they fired three big blasts at point-blank range. Naruto's vision went completely blank, and the last thing he felt was Ghidorah's gravity beams burning his back. Naruto could feel his body falling before it hit the ground hard near the broken eclipse gate. Acnologia, Naruto, Tou-san. Naruto growled as he slowly got back on his feet, but the pain was unbearable. What in the hell did he think? How could he let his guard down that easily? All because he saw the gate fall. Was he still that naive and proud? Still after all this time? A strong wind gust blew around the broken pieces of the eclipse gate. Around the gate, the mages and dragons covered their eyes because the winds were so strong. When the wind stopped blowing, most of the mages turned a pale shade of white when they saw what had caused the wind to pick up. King Ghidorah himself was standing just a few feet away from them. Igneel and Grandini ran in front of the people and growled at the golden kaiju as they did so. When the dragon tried to protect the weak humans, Ghidorah just laughed at it. But they were paying attention to the other team. Ha 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 ha, Acnologia, you've lost it. Honestly, after the eclipse gate was destroyed, you shouldn't have let your guard down. Either you were being too optimistic or... The right head told him. The left head slurred, or you're just plain stupid. Slowly, the three heads moved toward Naruto's body on the ground. But fire and wind blew in their way and stopped them. You won't touch him, shouted several people. The three heads turned to see Igneel, Grandini, and the mages who looked ready to fight growling at the golden kaiju. But Ghidorah was only paying attention to two people in the crowd. Lucy and Wendy. More specifically, the smell the brunette gave off. What? Is that your daughter, Acnologia? I can smell your scent on her. That blonde girl also looks like that Anna woman. Is she one of your children? The middle head asked out loud. As the dragons and human mages tensed up to fight the kaiju, the two girls stiffened, Lucy out of fear and Wendy out of anger. Said the left head. Maybe we should play with them first. Yes, they'll eat first, and then it'll be your turn, the right head confirmed. One of the heads lunged forward, but Acnologia's claw reached out and caught it. Everyone looked at Acnologia, and they all let out a shock-filled gasp. What's up? Acnologia's body had healed, and the marks of his tribe were shining. But instead of the usual bright blue, the marks were a deep crimson red, and a blood-red aura wrapped around his body. Everyone felt Acnologia's power skyrocket quickly, along with the intense heat he was giving off as the rubble around him started to melt in a matter of seconds. Everyone moved back quickly because they didn't want to get caught in the intense aura. Igneel and Grandini moved in front of the mages to protect them from the heat and get out of Naruto's way. Ghidorah was able to get out of Naruto's grip quickly. As the Black Dragon's power kept going up, the three heads glared at him. Before the two noticed that the gate was broken, this is probably what Acnologia had planned to do. But Ghidorah wouldn't be scared off by a color switch. Ghidorah raised his three heads and fired his gravity beams. But, to his surprise, Acnologia just stood there and faced the blasts. The most surprising thing was that Acnologia didn't move at all when he attacked. Since Ghidorah's head slipped out of his grasp, Naruto has been standing still with his head down. The Black Dragon raised his head to show that his eyes were blood-red with black slits instead of white and beady. This ends now. Naruto lunges at Ghidorah as he crashes into him. He quickly grabs the two side heads and uses his incredible strength to lift the golden kaiju and throw it high into the air. Naruto ran after him quickly. Ghidorah got back on his feet and tried to shoot again at Naruto, but the Black Dragon just shook his head. Naruto's tribal markings started to light up quickly. He let out a loud roar, and a red pulse shot out of his body. Ghidorah screamed in pain when the pulse hit it. His whole body felt like it was on fire. The kaiju tried to get close to Naruto so they could attack him again, but the Dragon King didn't let them. He sends out another pulse that is even stronger than the last one. The side heads of Ghidorah burn and melt off as a result. Ghidorah cried out again in pain as Naruto looked at the golden dragon with a cold look and let out one last pulse. This one was able to burn off the wings of Ghidorah. Before the middle head could fall to the ground, Naruto quickly flew over and grabbed him by the throat. He raises his free arm, where a big Rasengan has started to form. But this wasn't the highest point because Naruto kept putting more power into the Rasengan as it started to change shape. 4 wind blades spun around the center of the Rasengan, giving it a white color. As more mana went into the Rasengan, the blades got longer and moved even faster. People on the ground could hear a loud screech and were amazed by the new technique they were seeing. Many people saw that this attack was a lot like Wendy's, but it was much bigger and stronger. What on earth is that? Everyone was amazed and scared by how much mana was coming out of the attack, which made Hisui ask. Wendy said, "That's the next step in the evolution of my current Rasengan and one of the most powerful versions my father made." "It feels amazing," Lucy said, and several other people nodded. "But that sound hurts my ears," Natsu said, and the two dragons nodded in agreement. "Wendy, what's the name of the spell?" Mira asked. Wendy was happy. "They call it the Rasen's Hurricane." Naruto roared as he hit Ghidorah in the stomach with the big spiraling shuriken. It went right through the golden scales of the kaiju and into his stomach. Ghidorah let out one last scream as he and Naruto were engulfed by a huge electrical flash. Kaboom! As a huge explosion ripped through the sky. Everyone in the area covered their eyes because the explosion was so bright. When they saw the explosion and the flash that came after it, all the other mages and dragons turned to look. A thick cloud of dust covered the area in front of the two mages and the two dragons for a few more minutes after the flash went out. Everyone watched that last attack with worry, waiting to see what would happen. Wendy, Grandini, Igneel, Natsu, and Lucy are the ones who worry the most. When the dust settled, everyone let out a breath because Naruto, back in his normal dragon form, was standing over Ghidorah's beaten body, and they could tell he wasn't going to get back up. "Are you done for good this time, Ghidorah?" Naruto asked as he watched his opponent fall to the ground. Ghidorah tried to lift his glowing body, but he finally gave up, fell back down, and nodded. "I'd like to say I still have some fight left in me, but that would be a lie," he said. The kaiju then looked at the person he was fighting. "Acnologia, why didn't you use this form before?" The Black Dragon let out a sigh. "I only use that form as a last resort, when I have no other choice. My other spells did not work well against you in this fight, so this was my best chance to win. Not to mention that using form for a long time has its drawbacks." "Yes, I understand, but it was a great battle. I haven't had anything like it in a long time." Ghidorah said something nice. Naruto nodded. "We both feel the same way." As he looked up at Naruto, Ghidorah coughed up a glob of blood. "May you honor my last request?" Naruto raised an eyebrow and then gave a small nod. Speak it. I wish for you to take my soul, Ghidorah said. When asked, Naruto's eyes get bigger. Ghidorah could have asked for a lot of things, but that was the last thing he expected. He shut his eyes tight. What did Ghidorah plan to do? Why? Acnologia, you are strong. But I can tell that you are getting stronger. You haven't yet reached the full extent of your power. Let my ability to take in things help you get on that path to power. I think that being a part of you will make me happier than anything that death could give me. Naruto looked at Ghidorah as he thought about what the offer was. Taking Ghidorah's soul would give him more power, and maybe he could get something else from it as well. But did he have faith in Ghidorah? The kaiju should have known that even if he ate his soul, he couldn't hurt him. As a soul slayer of Saphira, he could protect his soul from attacks from both inside and outside of himself. He could also tell that Ghidorah's offer was real. A few more seconds of silence passed, and then he nodded. Do as you want. But Ghidorah stopped him before he could start. Before that, Acnologia, I have one last thing to say. Don't let the fact that you ate my soul stop you, Acnologia. You need to get stronger than you already are. Much stronger. You had to work hard to beat me, and the other enemies you'll face won't be as easy. The other pantheons probably felt or saw our battle today. They will look for you, both to help you and to hurt you. Let's not forget the people from your pantheon, your old enemies, and your close friends who will come after you after tonight. Even more so the leader of my species. I can promise you that he could feel this battle and how it would end. He will definitely try to fight you. You may have won against me, the king, but it won't be as easy against the Kaiser. Naruto nodded. I will remember that. If anyone wants to fight, I'll be ready. Naruto opened his mouth as a big golden ball rose from Ghidorah's chest. See you later, Dragon King Acnologia. Farewell, King Ghidorah. This was the last thing the two kings said to each other before Ghidorah's eyes closed for the last time. The soul of the kaiju flew up into the air and landed right in front of the black dragon. As Ghidorah's body broke up into golden pieces, Naruto quickly ate the soul. He opened his eyes wide as he felt his body and energy instantly come back to life. At the same time, his power rose to new heights. He was in a great mood. Power was literally running through every part of his body. It had been a long time since he had taken in a soul as powerful as Ghidorah's. His whole dragon-like body was surrounded by blue lightning. His tribal markings were a bright sky blue, and he had a royal blue aura around him. Naruto gritted his teeth as he got used to the power that was pouring out of him. Naruto let out a loud shout of victory. Out of his mouth, a huge beam of Aeternano shot up into the air. The huge explosion lit up the sky and sent waves through the ruins of the capital as everyone looked on in shock and amazement. As the light faded, Naruto sighed and turned back into a human. He sighed because he was tired. It's over at last, he murmured. Tou-san. When Naruto turned to look at the shout, he saw a fast blur that hit him in the chest. He looked down and saw Wendy hugging him tightly and putting her face into his chest. You're okay. She kept saying, you're fine, which made her feel better. Naruto gave her a soft smile as he pulled back into a tight hug. I'm glad you and the others are all okay, Wendy. Thank you, Dad. Naruto shook his head and said, for everything. Not Wendy. I should thank you, not the other way around. Naruto sighed as Wendy sobbed into his chest while he held her. Both of them had been up for a very long time, and Wendy was letting out all of her anger and sadness. He could still understand. She watched as her sister was killed in front of her, her necklace was broken, her foster mother came back, and she had to fight a dragon. Really, I couldn't believe how long she could hold it in. But everyone has a limit to how much crap they can take in one day before they snap. When I saw her again, she was just like her mother. He thought about the past. He looked around to see Igneel, Grandini, and all the other human mages who were near the gate approach. Wendy. There are people waiting to see us. His daughter nodded. The father and daughter looked at the crowd. Some of them looked relieved, some looked tired, many looked suspicious, and one looked especially angry. Naruto took one step, stumbled a little, and then got back on his feet. Are you okay? Mira asked. Naruto looked at her from above. He could tell that, even though she was tired, she was worried about him. What a cool girl she is. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. He gave his daughter a look that told her he was serious. Mira didn't look like she was sure. Are you sure, I mean Naruto? Naruto nodded. Yes. After my fight with Ghidorah, I'm just a little tired. I haven't had to face someone as strong as him in a long time. So I'm still a bit out of practice. The takeover mage cocked her head as if she didn't understand. Wasn't it 7 years that you trained? Yes, I did. Because of this, I did so well. If this had happened 7 years ago, I'd be in worse shape. Lucy was looking at Naruto when he turned around. She started to say, you. But Naruto put up his hand. Listen, I know you all have a lot of questions. But let's put them aside until we see everyone else, okay? Lucy gulped before nodding. Oh, okay. Lucy stopped Natsu from speaking when he looked like he was about to say something. He grumbled and glared at Naruto as he walked past them, and everyone followed him slowly. Central part of the capital. What's going on, Captain? King Toma asked. Your Majesty. From what we know so far, several people have been hurt, but no one has died yet. But the whole capital has been destroyed and turned into ruins. Everything would have to be put back the way it was hours ago, which would take months. The king put his head down. There are ways to fix the city. Our kingdom will last as long as the people do. Father. Toma turned to see where the voice was coming from, and his face broke into a wide, teary smile as his daughter, Hisui, ran towards him. He ran to meet her and gave his daughter a tight hug as he got there. Hisui. Oh, I'm so happy to see that you're okay, Toma sobbed. I'm the same, Dad. Toma looked up and saw Najend walk up to them with a small smile. I'm glad to see you're still alive, Lady Najenda, said a happy Toma. The general with white hair gave a nod. Same goes for you, Your Majesty. Toma looked at Kurome and Akame. Thanks to you girls for keeping Hisui safe. Before Akame spoke, the twins bowed. Thank you, but we had lots of help. The king turned around and saw a group of mages getting back together. Lisana ran over to her sister right away and gave her a tight hug. Mira nay. Are you okay? Mira jerked and gave a weak giggle. Bruised, but still alive. Lucy. Wendy. Are you two okay? Juvia was anxious. The water mage yelled as she held the two people tightly and sobbed. We're fine, Juvia, Wendy said as she, the others, and the rest of Fairy Tail got back together. Yukino was about to talk to her sister, but she had already left to join her guild. Yukino was a little sad, but she knew she would get to talk to her again. What's up, Flame Brain? Gray said hello to his fierce rival, friend. Oh, hey, Gray, Natsu said without thinking about it. Gray saw that his competitor wasn't very interested and wondered what was wrong. I thought that you would be happy to be with your dad. Natsu grimaced a bit. Yeah, I am, but... Whatever he was going to say was cut short when 5 big shadows filled the square where the mages were. Everyone looked up in awe as Igneel and the other 4 dragons flew down right in front of them. Many of the mages say, wow, when they see their 5 new guests. As they looked at the parents they had been looking for, the first-generation dragon slayers felt many different things. For example, Rogue and Sting were confused about how their parents were still alive. Before they could say anything, the dragons looked to see who was coming. Makarov said, there he is, as Naruto D. Marvell walked casually toward the group. Almost everyone was quiet, but Anna and Irene moved forward until they were between the dragons and Naruto, who stopped just a few inches from them. Igneel went down on one knee and bowed to Naruto without being asked or told to. Anna and Irene, the other dragons, did the same. Your Majesty. They said the same thing. It's an honor and a pleasure to see you like this again, Dragon King. Igneel proclaimed. Everyone was interested to see what Naruto would do. Would he laugh and tell everyone else to bow, too? Would he start a long speech about how much better he was? The only thing Naruto did was roll his eyes at his wives and the 5 dragons. Get up, idiots. You already know how much I hate bowing. Even my father, Thorin, didn't like it, he said as he turned to his wives. Why are the 2 of you bowing? You're my queens. You are on the same level as me, so you don't have to bow down to me. Ever. Naruto made that clear. Anna and Irene laughed as they stood up with the dragons. Always good looking. Irene made fun. Naruto smirked. I want to be liked. Both of them said, yes, you do. They turned around when someone coughed loudly and saw that everyone was looking at them. Wendy gave them a sly smile and a thumbs up. Urza played with her thumbs to avoid looking at them, and Lucy laughed in an awkward way. Oh, right, I almost forgot that people were watching. As he snapped his fingers, Naruto thought. All of the palace soldiers, Lahar, and most of the other guild mages fell to the ground at the same time. Everyone let out a shocked gasp. Hey! What have you done to them? After checking Lahar's pulse, Doranbolt asked. Naruto ignored the look he and the other mage were giving him. Don't worry, I just knocked them out so they can't hear what's going to happen next. After you've heard everything, you can change what they remember. That's your skill, right? With an ominous smile, Naruto asked. Doranbolt gulped and quickly nodded as chills went down his spine. With a wave of his hands, Naruto made a stone chair appear out of the ground. He took his time sitting down on the stone furniture. You can start asking questions now. Wham! Right away, Natsu hit Naruto in the face with a fiery right hook. Everyone yelled, Natsu. But the attack didn't do anything because Naruto just stopped it with one finger. You fool, Natsu hissed. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed before opening them and staring at the fire dragon slayer out of boredom and irritation. Stupid fool. Did you think that my slight weakness would leave me open to your weak fists? Natsu Dragneel, you should know your place. Naruto gave Natsu a lecture as he pushed him back a few feet with a simple tap on the chest. Natsu grunted, and fire came out of his whole body. You bastard, he started, but Gray grabbed him and put him in a full Nelson. Oi. Hold on, Firecracker. He's the last person you should be rude to. Gray tried to talk to the fire mage but failed. Gildarts got in between Natsu and Naruto. Take it easy, Natsu. Gildarts gave a speech. No. I need to smash this jerk's face into the ground. Urza and Wendy walked up to Naruto out of nowhere. Urza swore, you won't touch him, as she called up 2 blades in her hands and a few more above her head. If you want to get to him, Natsu, you will have to go through us, Wendy said as she called Bakuya and Kanshu to her side as wind swirled around her. Everyone got pretty tense because the tension was so high. Whoa, whoa. Stay put. Everyone, calm down. Lucy said in a shaky voice. Aren't we friends? If we're friends, why are they defending that piece of crap? Natsu yelled out. Natsu, enough. You won't talk to your king in that way. Igneel let out a loud roar that made everyone jump in fear. The Fire Dragon King then used a lot of his magical power to get his point across. Give me one reason not to. Natsu answered back. Suddenly, Laxus appeared right next to him. He hesitated for a moment, then hit the fire mage with his fist. Open your fucking eyes, Natsu. Most of US would be dead right now if it weren't for hypnotherapy. Laxus bellowed. That stopped Natsu from fighting back, and the others also stopped talking. Laxus was right, even though no one wanted to admit it. The magic that Naruto and Irene used really did save them. It gave them the strength they needed to stand up to the dragon's attacks and even hurt them. Also, Naruto calling back the 5 missing dragons was a huge life-saver. Gildarts gave Natsu a friendly pat on the shoulder. You can hate him as much as you want, but we all owe our lives to him. The Crush Mage gave a soft explanation. Natsu growled and then sighed in defeat as he slowly nodded. Then he looked at the blue-haired Sky Mage. How long have you known your dad was Acnologia, Wendy? I've known since I was a small child. I already told you this, don't you remember? Wendy told me. All of the mages looked at her in shock. But you've never told us. Why? Natsu stressed. Wendy's eyes rolled. She began in a sarcastic way, oh, I'm sorry. What the hell should I have said? Everyone, my dad's name is Acnologia. That would have worked out fine. Everyone jumped because they knew that if they had known this before, things would have gone very wrong. Even more so if the Magic Council ever heard about this. If the council ever tries to hurt Wendy, Cammy, help them all and bring her father's anger not just to the council but to the whole world. Gray looked at the other magicians in the room, paying special attention to Mermaid Heel and Fairy Tail. How many of you knew that Naruto was Acnologia? The people who raised their hands were Makarov, Gildarts, Urza, Anna, Irene, Laxus, Mavis, Jelal, Ultir, and Merity. Master. Guildarts. You already knew? Gray yelled out in surprise. We've known about Naruto ever since the GMG had a 3-month break. We told Mavis what we thought was going on with Wendy's strange behavior when we got back. Makarov gave a reason. Wendy scratched her head in shame as her father and mother laughed and shook their heads. Laxus? Evergreen asked. Me and those 3 found out at the end of the 3rd day, Laxus said, pointing at the members of Crime Sorcier. Jelal? You knew before I did. Urza couldn't believe what she was hearing. Why did he know before she did? That isn't right. Jelal looked at his girlfriend in a shy way. Sorry, Urza. I would have told you, but your dad was in charge of that. Also, your dad might have said he would kill me. Tou-san. Urza said in an embarrassed way as she blushed. Hey, all I said was that I would kill him if he made you cry. If he makes you cry, I have every right as your father to tear him to pieces. Urza's face and hair were both red at this point. Tou-san. He's right, you know, said Irene. Mom, please don't help him, Urza begged. Wait, so you all knew and didn't say anything? Natsu yelled as a strong magical pressure came out of Naruto all of a sudden. Enough, boy, Naruto said in a cold voice that made everyone shiver. Natsu just nodded, knowing that for once he should keep his mouth shut. Naruto sighed and sat down. Now, let me explain a bit. Most of you probably remember the conversation you had with Zirconis, right? Those who had been to the dragon graveyard nodded in agreement, but everyone else looked like they had no idea what was going on. Urza, Laxus, and Lucy each took a turn telling what had happened so that everyone could catch up. As you know, I made Dragon Slayer magic to turn the tide of the Dragon Civil War. I was the first to get it, so people called me Dracul or Dragon. Others called me Dracula, son of the dragon. However, there were consequences for making this magic. Either your body couldn't handle the power and you turned into dust, or you lost your mind and became mindless beasts that had to be killed. Wait, so any person who kills a dragon can turn into one? Sting asked. Naruto nodded. That's right. The more you use your Dragon Slayer magic, the closer you will get to becoming a dragon. The only exceptions are Laxus and Cobra, who are artificial slayers and don't have to worry about that. Cobra and Laxus said at the same time, thank goodness for that. Rogue asked, so the rest of us could turn into dragons? Neither he nor Sting liked the idea very much. Naruto gave a headshake. No, no one needs to worry about that. Well, Wendy doesn't have to worry about it. Now, the 2 slayers and the other mages didn't know what to do. Leon asked, what do you mean? I mean, your dragons went away to stop you brats from turning into dragons. When it was found out that many of us were turning into dragons, I looked for ways to stop it. It turned out to be impossible to stop, so I worked on a solution while also fighting on the front lines of the war. I never found a complete answer. I had found a possible answer, but I had never had the chance to test it and see if it worked. Naruto sighed and glared at the 5 dragons with irritation. That didn't stop these 5 stupid dragons from using my notes to do the ritual that wasn't finished. Hey, we're not fools. The 5 yelled in anger. This time, Naruto got up from his seat and yelled, yes, you 5 are. WHO uses untested method to seal your body and soul into your slayer's body? Wait, what? Everyone exclaimed in shock, except those who already knew this. Natsu said, that's what happened. As he looked at his father in shock. Igneel nodded. Yes, I thought the dragons would get into your bodies and make antibodies that would stop the dragon seed from spreading and stop the dragonification from ever being seen. Gray asked, so, what happened to end the war? As he sat down, Naruto put his hand on his face, let out a long sigh, and gave his audience a very tired look. My fucking stupidity. I went to Zeref to try to end the war, and the only way I could think of was for him to make me part demon. But I became a mindless monster. I killed and destroyed everyone who stood in my way, he said, turning to the 5 dragons. These 5 had the same bad luck. Sting told him, but they're standing right here. Igneel said, he's not wrong in every way. Natsu asked, what do you mean, Igneel? What he means is that when Naruto attacked us, he used his soul-slaying magic and tore large pieces of our souls. We would have died, but sealing ourselves within you 5 saved us and kept you from becoming dragons, except for Wendy, Grandini said as she looked at her foster daughter. Ghidorah was confused. Wait, how did you get away? And why is Wendy the only one who didn't get caught? Metallicana said, we used the eclipse gate to travel 400 years into the future. The day we arrived in this time period was July 7th, 777. The day you thought we were gone was the day you arrived in this time period. Then, everyone who had known the 5 Slayers since they were young had a big realization. The fact that they couldn't write or read the current language, that they forgot things, and that Natsu and Ghidorah couldn't get through the rune barrier were all strange things. Several mages said at the same time, that explains a lot. Wendy is different because I gave her a power that used to be mine. It mixed with her magic and made it stronger, so now she is like me and Irene, Naruto said. Hisui suddenly thought of something. Wait, I remember seeing 5 lights flying through the sky and going to different places 14 years ago. Are you saying that? Naruto nodded. Yes, that's when the 5 dragons flew out of the gate and went to 5 different places. That's also when Anna came to this time period. Toma nodded. Yes, I remember. She was in terrible shape, but we were able to get her medical help, and her strong will and ability to heal, along with the help of that stellar mage, helped her make a full recovery. Anna smiled. Yes, I do owe you and Layla Heartfilia a lot for bringing me back to life. Wait, you knew my mom? Lucy asked in shock. Anna nodded. Hi. She was the one who opened the gate at this time. She knew how to do it because I left a journal for one of my descendants to read so that they could find their way to the King of Fury and ask him to open the gate. Then Anna made a frown. But I did tell you not to use those damn gates again, because nothing good would happen if you did. Both Toma and Hisui jerked. Please forgive us, Anna-sama. We thought that closing the gates to stop Zeref would also destroy Acnologia. We now know that was a big mistake. Naruto gave the king and princess the evil eye. Yes, and we'll talk about that when all of this is over, right? Toma gulped and nodded in fear. Natsu asked, then why does Anna have dragon-slaying magic, and why does she look like Lucy? Anna gave her husband a wave. Anna started by saying, I can take it from here, and then she turned to the audience. The reason I look so much like Lucy is because, as I said, I am her ancestor mother from 400 years ago. Lucy yelled, wait. Naruto called you his queen, so you're also his wife, the blonde stellar mage said. The blonde's face then turned pale. So that means. Naruto and Anna nodded. Yes, Lucy, you are also Naruto's child. He is your ancestor. Levi realized, that explains why you snapped when Minerva beat Lucy. That's why. It was because they made fun of my daughter, my blood, my family, Naruto growled. Lucy blushed a little because she liked how Naruto looked out for her. Natsu asked Anna, wait, how did you become a dragon slayer? It's easy. I'm the maid of the king and queen of the dragon slayers. When they marked me as their mate, I got their abilities, Anna said. Levi asked, wait, can Lucy become a dragon slayer? Naruto and Anna both gave shrugs. She could only become a slayer if Natsu or another slayer made her their mate. Lucy and Natsu got red in the face. Hey, don't say it that way, yelled the blonde stellar. Naruto let out a frustrated sigh. He then turned to Wendy and said, oh boy. Are they really this much in denial? Wendy nodded. Yes, Dad, but maybe they can get together after this, she said with a smile. Wendy. The two of them yelled in shame. Wendy gave a simple shrug. What, it's not my fault that you two act like an old married couple. And if Natsu is worried about Lisanna, he could always have a harem like my dad did. Natsu, Lucy, and Lisanna all screamed, Wendy. In shame. Lisanna and Lucy both had faces that looked like they were on fire. Mira was making plans in her head that she would tell Wendy and Naruto in order to get the three of them together. The Sky Slayer shook her head. Oh, stop whining. Urza, you and I are sisters. It's normal for sisters to tease each other. There's also Katya, Ultir, and Merity. Merity was confused and asked, wait, why are you bringing us into this? Wendy gave a shrug. Ultir, I'm sure you've heard that my dad liked your mother and thought about dating her. That means, Merity, that he's kind of your grandfather. When Ultir and Merity met Naruto at the end of the third day, he did say something similar. This made both of them blush. Then Naruto looked at the time mage. Ultir, since we're talking about you, we're going to talk about that dangerous stunt you almost did. Ultir took a deep breath as everyone turned to her, especially Meridi and Jelal, who were suspicious about what Naruto meant. When Naruto told Ultir's team what she planned to do, they were not happy. What the hell were you thinking, Ul? Meridi asked in anger and fear at the thought of almost losing her adopted mother. The look her daughter was giving her made the time mage jump. Sorry, I was desperate and didn't know if we were going to make it through the invasion, even though we were getting help. Now, Naruto was in front of Ultir. You're damn right, you were desperate and stupid. It was reckless of you to throw away your life so easily. That's not what your mother wanted for you. Ultir was getting mad this time. Why did Naruto care so much about her well-being? She finally asked, why does my life or what happens to me matter to you so much? Naruto took Ultir's shoulders in his hands. Since I failed your mother already, I can't fail you too. Ultir's eyes got bigger when everyone went quiet and looked confused. What does have to do with any of this? Gray and Leon were very interested in what he would say. Ultir finally asked in a soft voice, what do you mean? I couldn't protect the children and dragons in my care. I failed my wife and everyone close to me 400 years ago. I failed Wendy and the other slayers by not getting more involved in their lives. I failed Layla and her daughter. I failed my surrogate sister, Mavis, when she needed me. I failed your mother by not being there to save her and going out to look for you. I am sick and tired of failing the people close to me and their kids. He then gave Ultir another angry look. So don't argue. You won't do that again, Naruto said in a very firm voice. Ultir says softly, okay. Sorry, father. She doesn't pay attention to what she just called Naruto. As he walked back to his seat and turned to face his silent audience, Naruto nodded. Next question. Katya raised her hand. Why did you include me? Wendy giggled playfully. She then turned to her father and said, come on, Katya. You look too much like me for it to be a coincidence. Well? Naruto rolled his eyes at his daughter and then looked at the other blue-eyed girl. Katya, I noticed that you had stellar power, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Your appearance made me suspicious about what our connection could be, but when you called the Titans and I thought about how you looked, it all made sense. Anna was looking closely at Katya. Now that you say it, she really does look just like her, she said in a happy, shocked tone. Irene said back, it's almost scary how much you Heartfilia look alike. Katya asked, what exactly do you mean? You are a descendant of my daughter, Lysandra Heartfilia, and the only other mage to have possessed and commanded the Celestial Titans, Naruto said. Katya got red in the face when she realized she was looking at her ancestors. Oh. She didn't know what to think or feel. When she found out she had a family, it made her happy and excited. But part of her was worried that she was related to the Dragon King, and she was also not sure if she would have to leave Eclair and stay with Wendy and the others. This raised a new question about what will happen to Eclair and Mammon. When Wendy gave Katya a big hug, she was pulled out of her many thoughts. Anna smiled cheekily. Wendy nodded. It looks like our little family is growing. Yeah, I can't wait to see who else will be brought in, she said as Katya and the other girls blushed. Irene pointed at Naruto and said, ask your father. He always likes to have a big harem. You should have seen that one time at our orgy night. Irene, mistress, mom, auntie, said several people, with Urza being the loudest. When Naruto looked at his wife with red hair, he frowned. Hold on. I'm not taking the blame for that. Need I remind you that it was you, Kazuhana, and Tsukimi who brought those bloody aphrodisiac flowers to that big dinner? Not to mention that you and the other girls teased me all week before that dinner, and you two encouraged it. Let's not forget that your mothers joined in on the fun. I'm glad they weren't there that night, who knows what could have happened. Anna and Irene got a little red in the face as they laughed. Yeah, once the flower took effect, you didn't have much control. Naruto huffed. I was able to keep my cool enough to put a seal on all of you to keep you from getting pregnant, he said before turning to his stunning blonde bombshell. Everyone except Anna, who did something to turn it around and get pregnant with twins. Irene asked her blonde lover, I'm still not sure how you do it. Anna smiled and laughed as she gave the two a coy look. I have great hands, Naruto said. Both he and Irene smiled. Yes, you do. Can you please stop talking about that? asked Lucy and Urza, who were both boiling with anger. Many other people nodded in agreement. Anna, Naruto, and Irene all gave a shrug. It's not like you people don't know what sex is, Naruto said. Lucy said, Wendy's too young for this. Wendy let out a sigh of defeat. I'm sorry, Lucy, but we already talked about sex. Plus, my dad will probably build up his harem to satisfy his princess fetish, so I know I'll hear a lot more about this in the future. I don't have a thing for princesses, Wendy, Naruto said right away. Igneel teased, maybe that's why dragons have been linked to that group. Naruto said, wait, I had nothing to do with that group. It was around before I was born. Don't blame me for it. Irene teased, you made it popular, and Anna nodded to show that she agreed. I did not. Naruto denied it again. You kinda did, Dad, Wendy replied. Naruto looked at her when he saw her. Explain, he told her. Hinata Okawa-sama was the princess of her clan. Anna Ka-chan was the princess, queen of the celestial spirit world in her family. Auntie Irene and Ka-chan were both princesses of the kingdom, Wendy said. All of the girls in the harem were princesses in some way or another. She smiled at her dad as she looked out at the crowd. Grandini Ka-san likes you and is known as the Sky Queen. Then there's It wouldn't surprise me if you went after Mira, Sayla, Kagura, and probably Hisui, Eclair, and Yukino, too. When Wendy talked about girls or women, every single one of them turned a deep red. Grandini's head was so red that steam was coming out of it, which made the other dragons laugh. Anna and Irene were laughing and planning in secret how to make Naruto's harem bigger and who they would end up with. Several of the girls got a chill down their spines because they knew something bad was about to happen to them. Naruto just stared blankly at his daughter before heaving a sigh of resignation and turning to his audience. Does anyone else have any questions? Aren't you going to deny it at all? Almost everyone, especially the women I just mentioned, screamed in their heads. Natsu asked, can you show us your harem? Natsu. People yelled. Natsu looked at them in surprise. What? He asked in a childlike way. Naruto gave Natsu a blank look. Why? He asked sharply, and his close family members looked at him with worry. Natsu shrugged. Because I'm pretty sure everyone here is interested, even if some of them don't say so. Naruto stared at the Fireslayer for a long time before he finally let out a sigh. Fine, he said, and with a snap of his fingers, 10 very pretty women appeared on the screen in front of everyone. In quick order, these are Musubi, Uzume, Kazuhana, Tsukimi, Miya, Matsu, Akitsu, Karasuba, Hibiki, and finally Hikari, Naruto said as he named each girl. Most of the men flew away with their hearts in their eyes as blood sprayed out of their noses in a geyser. Most of the girls and guys who were still there had their jaws on the floor and were red in the face. The dragons just laughed as they looked at the projections with a nostalgic look on their faces. Anna and Irene looked at their ex-lovers with sad frowns on their faces. Most of the guys groaned as they came to their senses and said, you fucking lucky bastard. As he got rid of the projections, Naruto rolled his eyes. Natsu asked, what happened to them? They died at the end of the war, Natsu. That's all there is to it, Naruto said in a harsh tone that made his family flinch. The rest knew that the subject had been dropped and would not be brought up again. For now, at least. Natsu asked, what happened to future Lucis timeline? Did we manage to save it? Naruto sighed because he knew things were about to get bad. Natsu, that's not how you go back in time. Lucy asked, what do you mean? I mean that time doesn't go in a straight line. There are an infinite number of possible futures, which leads to multiple split timelines. The timeline that Mirai Lucy came from is one of an infinite number. We changed the future of this timeline, but we didn't change or erase Mirai Lucy's timeline. We just changed how the future will be for this timeline. Her timeline is still the desolate wasteland she left. The news made everyone angry and upset, but Natsu looked especially angry. That's not fair. We stopped that jerk and destroyed the gate for nothing? Naruto looked at him like he had two heads. We saved this timeline from having the same thing happen, so her sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Natsu, when did this become about fairness? Life isn't fair. Sometimes it's even cruel, and sometimes the only thing you can do is accept it and move on. Bastard. Natsu charged at him, but Lucy hugged the angry fire mage from behind. At the end, Lucy said in a soft voice, "Natsu, stop. Let him talk." Natsu glared at Naruto. "You keep talking about how unfair things are, so let's talk about you. Let's talk about what you did to Lucy, who you call your daughter. That was unfair." Naruto's eyes got narrower because he knew where Natsu was going with this. "What are you doing? You forgot what you did to her. Need I remind you that when you put her in that coma for 7 years, her father died and she couldn't see him again or even say goodbye? That's your fault. His blood is on your hands." Lucy yelled, "Natsu, stop," as she held Natsu even tighter. But Natsu started, but Lucy's look stopped him. Lucy's look changed as she started to talk. "Natsu, I know you're angry, but you need to stop. Yes, Naruto did a lot of bad things, but he also did a lot of good things. He trained Wendy for the games, he saved her from Raventail, he helped me during my match, he showed us the dragon graveyard, and he helped everyone during the invasion. We all owe him, even if we don't like him." Natsu and a few other people were quiet as they thought about what Lucy had said. Naruto sighed because he knew he would get a lot of bad feelings, but he had to keep going. He wants to show them that he is trying to make up for what he has done wrong in the past. There were many sins, but he will try to fix as many of them as he can and help the people he hurt. "Look, I'm not going to stand here and say I did nothing wrong. I hurt you and the other members of your guild. I know better than anyone what suffering can do to a person. It can break them. It can change them into something very ugly. All I can say is that I'm sorry, and I'll try to make up for my mistakes." Natsu looked confused. "What are you saying? What did you have to go through?" Naruto groaned. Snap. Everyone saw a bucket appear out of nowhere. Each mage looked up at the Dragon King with worry. "What are these used for?" Gray asked. "Because you're going to need it," Naruto said before closing his eyes. All of a sudden, his eyes grew wide and a bright white light shone in them. Share a memory. Everyone's eyes were white for a few seconds before they went back to how they were before. After a few seconds of silence, everyone ran quickly to every bucket and threw up. The sound of people throwing up filled the air. Wendy, Urza, Mavis, the dragons, Irene, and Anna were the only ones who didn't throw up because they had already seen all the memories of Naruto's life in Konoha. Everyone's reaction to the memories they had just seen was to say, "Fucking damn it." Several people groaned, "Too much. I hate you so much it hurts, Natsu." Laxus, Gajeel, and Cobra all let out growls. "Get in line." Gray gave a reply. "Get lost. I already dislike myself." Natsu answered with a grunt. It took everyone a few minutes to stop crying and make themselves look at least a little bit better. So, Makarov starts out slow. "What's going to happen after this?" "Simple, we prepare," Naruto said in response. No one seemed to understand what he was saying. "Prepare? Get ready for what?" Toma asked. The look on Naruto's face changed. "War." The king, Hisui and her guards, Najenda, Doranbolt, the wizard saints, and the guild masters all froze in fear when they heard the word, and the other mages looked worried. Over the past 7 years, dark forces have been getting stronger. Fairy tale, I'm sure Jelal and his group have already told you about this. I'm sure the wizard saints and the royal family have heard this, too, the blonde king added. This fight right now has probably gotten a lot of people in groups interested in this country. For good and bad, and maybe something in the middle. With my help and the help of the dragons, you all barely made it through this invasion. None of you beat your enemy's dragons on your own. Even the people who killed dragons had to have help to win their battles. So you'll all need to start training, and I'll help make sure you meet my expectations. Some people didn't believe the claim, but Naruto doesn't seem like the type to make jokes about things like that. A lot of people looked uncertain. Even though they knew he wasn't bad, they weren't sure yet if they could trust him. Natsu hit his fists together so hard that they caught fire. There's nothing wrong with that. Just remember that I'll come after that crown when you're not looking. Naruto laughed out loud, which made a few people blush. Come on, boy. I'll gladly take on your challenge. He then smiled cheekily at Natsu. Whenever you're ready. Some people's tensions seemed to have been eased by that small interaction, as people started to cheer or moan about the hell they were about to face. All of a sudden, the 5 dragons started to shine and particles started coming out of their bodies. What's happening? Gajeel asked his foster parent as he stared at him. What is going on with you guys? Wendy asked her mother, who gave her a sad, resigned smile. What was wrong? Igneel said, it looks like our time is up, and it's time for us to move on to the next world. Wait, you can't leave. Natsu yelled that wasn't true. I still need you to be here. Wendy begged with her eyes filled with tears. Grandini knelt down close to Wendy and gave a soft smile. Dear Wendy, you have changed so much since we last saw each other. I owe it to your guild and your father. Grandini then lifts her head and looks at the first generation's 5 dragon slayers. You 5 will be just fine without us. Wait a sec. Hold on. Naruto began. You fools, where do you think you're going? Because you won't leave and leave me to clean up after you. The blonde king said something. The blonde then waved his hands, and in front of him a magical seal appeared. 5 large tubes with some kind of liquid came up from the sigil. What was in each tube looked like a white corpse. Naruto, what are those? Acnologia asked. Naruto smirked. Your new bodies, he told the dragons and people, much to their surprise. It took a while to make them, but they are ready now, and Lady Giratina and the others gave their approval before you even asked. The dragons couldn't believe it. Were they really another chance to live? How? Skiadrum was able to finally ask. They are fake bodies that you can use as empty containers. Most of the damage to your souls is fixed by the time you spend in the Slayers. These vessels are full of your element-aligned Soul Dragon Slayer mana. These will fill in any missing pieces and bring you back to your normal self, but in human form. Think of it as a second chance. Naruto uttered a stunned Metallicana. Little sneak. Igneel snickered. Thank you. The dragons all said the same thing. Naruto nodded. Anything else we should know? Acnologia asked. Before you go in, make sure you have a human form in mind, and make sure it's what you really want to be, Naruto said. He said, now go. As the dragons charged into the man-made things, they all nodded and gave off a bright red, green, bluish-white, white, and black glow. A bright flash made it impossible for anyone to see the dragons' new bodies. People could only hear the glass tubes breaking and the fluids leaking out onto the ground. Before the steam came out of the tubes, there was an eerie silence. The broken glass tubes were destroyed as they fell to the ground. As hot steam covered the square, the bright light went out. Wow, that was a weird feeling, said a young man's voice. No, it's neither good nor bad. Just really strange, said a rough voice. It's strange to feel so small. A much older person spoke up. A woman asked, why do I feel so heavy in the front? When the steam finally went away, everyone could see the dragons. What they saw was, to say the least, jaw-dropping. Igneel looked like a young man in his mid-20s now. His black hair was long and flowing, and he had a few freckles on his cheeks. Metallicana was a young man with blonde hair that stuck up. Acnologia looked like a man in his 40s or 50s with shaggy white hair. Skiadrum looked like a man in his 40s with black hair and red eyes, and Grandini looked like a very beautiful and attractive woman in her 40s with long silver hair and blue eyes. Igneel looks like Ace from One Piece, Metallicana looks like Let from Rave Master, Acnologia looks like Ozpin from RWBY, Skiadrum looks like Kirao from RWBY, and Grandini looks like Grafia from High School DxD. Everyone said, holy shit. It really did work. Igneel cheered in happiness and excitement. But there was another issue that needed to be fixed. The 5 dragons who had turned into people were all buck naked. Everyone, especially the mages who were staring at the male and female dragons, covered their eyes or looked somewhere else. Can you idiots put on some clothes? A crowd of red-faced people yelled. Naruto, you perverted bastard, what did you do to me? Grandini made a noise. In anger, Naruto felt a vein pop on his forehead. I'm not responsible for this. You picked that form by yourself. That is not true. I didn't want it to be that way. The Sky Queen argued while holding her big chest. Both of us know that's a load of crap, Grandini. That's the form you chose because you think it best shows who you are. Naruto gave a reply. Anna said as she looked at the shape of the Sky Dragon, it also looks absolutely beautiful. Naruto will love you for sure. Irene made fun. Anna. Irene. Grandini yelled, making herself feel bad. Naruto groaned. Look, Grandma, if you wanted to impress me or court me, you didn't have to go so far. Grandini looks at the blonde Dragon Slayer King with a glare. Will you be quiet? It took a few more minutes for everyone to calm down and make some temporary clothes for the new dragons to wear until better ones could be found later. Now then, we should probably get some rest, Naruto told the crowd before he sighed. It has been a long time for all of us. How? Najenda just had to ask. Everything has been thrown back to the ground. No, in part because of you. Naruto gave a shrug. I understand. Ultir, could you come over here for a moment? As she walked toward the humanoid black dragon, the time mage took a deep breath. Naruto rolled his eyes when he saw Ultir's eyes were full of worry. Relax. I promise I won't bite you. I just need you to use your magic to help me. Ultir sat back a little and then raised an eyebrow because she knew what he wanted to do. You must be kidding if you're talking about Arc of Time. I have never tried to fix up something as big as a city, let alone the capital. Naruto just waved away her worries. Don't worry, I'll help you. I'll give you the mana you need, and all you have to do is concentrate and cast the spell. Naruto put his hand on Ultir's shoulder and slowly gave Ultir some of his mana. The time mage jerked when she felt a rush of mana fill reverse and then some. It was crazy. She feels like her back pocket has been filled 10 or more times. Kami, there was no way to describe how strong Naruto's reserves were and how deep they went. Through her connection, she could feel how big Naruto's mana container was, and dear God, it was huge. She literally had nothing to compare the depths of the reserves to, so she couldn't find words to describe them. What kind of power did Naruto have? She shook her head and went back to what she was doing. Arch of Time. All that was left of the destroyed capital was surrounded by a huge seal. In a few minutes, they used rubble, asphalt, cinder blocks, cement, and bricks to rebuild buildings, towers, walls, lanterns, and other things to how they were before the last day of the GMG started. The great capital of Fury was brought back to its former glory in just a few minutes. When the capital went back to how it was before, everyone cheered. Hisui and King Toma walked up to Naruto and bowed to him. Thank you, Acnologia. Naruto thanked Ultir with a pat on the head, which made her feel very awkward. Ultir is the one you should thank. She performed the spell. I just gave him a hand. The two thanked the time mage, even though they tried to say they didn't have to. Then Naruto turned his attention to the king while everyone else was having a party. Toma, I need something from you. The king was not sure what to make of the blonde killer. What's that? Naruto crouched down and said something to Toma in his ear. The king's eyes got bigger, and he thought for a moment before he sighed and looked at Naruto again. It would be hard to do that, but I think it could be done. As Toma turned to face the crowd of mages and knights, Naruto gave him a nod. Mages of Fury, you can now rest. In a few days, I'll throw a party to celebrate the end of the GMG, and everyone is welcome. Then the king looked at Naruto. This also refers to you, Acnologia. Everyone cheered, you're awesome, your majesty. Naruto nodded in appreciation. Thank you. He then snapped his fingers and the knights who had passed out were sent to their beds. Then Naruto looked at the fairy tale mages. Let's go, brats. We need to get some sleep. Everyone has had a long night. Everyone nodded and started heading to their rooms for a good night's sleep. They needed it while the king sent some soldiers to get the civilians from the shelters. They didn't know it, but many people were keeping an eye on them. One was only a few feet away, and he was furious as he looked at the fleeing mages, especially the fairy tale members. I should tell Lord Savitar about this right away, the voice said as it faded into the shadows. From a few miles away from the capital, a young man with silver hair and spikes watched the scene. He was able to do this because he could see and hear so well. When Man Ni-san fought Ghidorah, he was a total monster. I'm so excited to tell my parents about this. I am so happy that they told me to come here. See you soon, Ni-san. I can't wait for the king and the emperor to fight. That makes my heart race. The young man smiled as his eyes glowed green and a green and white aura surrounded him. Wings grew from his body and he took off into the air. The teen didn't know that someone else was watching the scene in the silver teen's quick exit. This was another young man with tattoos all over his body and fiery red hair. Hey. So even emperors want something fun to do. I don't blame them. Acnologia, let's see how you deal with us. Even though he was almost dead, the red-scaled jerk beat Mother Glare. The dragon who made me wouldn't do anything else, though. I'll see you again soon, Dad. Likewise, lil' brother. In another place, far from the capital, near the rebuilt mountains, a figure stood on top of a spire. He was a huge man with black hair that stuck up in spikes and blood-red eyes. He gave a big smile that showed how sharp his teeth were. Acnologia. No, Naruto. You are no longer that funny person I met 1,000 years ago. I'm sure our second match will be a lot of fun. After all, you feel like you owe me something, right? So I'll wait for you, my old friend. The giant then grew huge, demonic wings and took off into the sky. He flew until he reached the horizon, and his dark shape flew over the moons above the capital city. Finally, a familiar black mage stood in the grasslands around the capital and looked at the capital from afar. Acnologia is great as always, but there's no Naruto.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.